Just imagine pulling into a gas station at midnight and a complete stranger calls you by a name no one has used for years. A name only your mother ever said. She's been dead for over a decade. That's exactly what happened to me. And I swear to you, the sound of that word left me colder than the night air around me. I was driving a lonely stretch of highway, the kind where the radio signal fades into static and the trees on either side crowd so close they feel like they're leaning in, listening. My gas gauge had dipped lower than I liked, so when I spotted a dimly lit station up ahead, I pulled off without thinking twice. The place looked deserted, 2 working pumps, 1 buzzing light, and a convenience store that might have been closed if not for the faint glow inside. I killed the engine, stepped out, and the silence hit me. No other cars. No crickets. No sound but the faint hum of electricity in the flickering bulbs. I slipped the nozzle into the tank, trying to shake the uneasy feeling crawling under my skin. That's when I saw him. A man was standing just outside the store. Tall, lean, hands shoved deep into the pockets of a long coat. He wasn't moving, just watching. The kind of stillness that makes you realize you've been spotted before you're ready to be. And then he spoke. Linny. My heart stopped. That was the name. Her name for me. My mother's. No one else had ever called me that. Not friends, not girlfriends, not even my father. Just her. And she'd been gone for 12 years. The sound of it hit me so hard I dropped the nozzle, gasoline splashing against the pavement. I looked up, certain I'd misheard. But the man was smiling. A thin, knowing smile, like he was waiting for me to answer. Sorry, what? My voice cracked in the quiet. He tilted his head slightly, the way someone does when they're trying to jog your memory. Linny, he repeated, softer this time, almost like he was savoring the word. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to get back in the car and drive, but my legs wouldn't move. My mother's voice echoed in my head, pulling up memories I hadn't touched in years, her whispering it when she tucked me in at night, or when she wanted my attention without anyone else knowing. Linny. Nobody else could have known. The man finally stepped forward. His shoes scraped the pavement, deliberate, slow, like he was giving me a chance to run if I wanted. But I didn't. I couldn't. Up close, I could see his face better in the sickly light. He wasn't old, but there was something worn about him, something tired in the lines around his eyes. His coat looked heavy, outdated, like something from another decade. How do you know that name? I managed to choke out. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. He held it loosely, almost carelessly, but I recognized it instantly. It was a keychain. A cheap plastic trinket shaped like a little angel, wings chipped on one side. My breath caught. That had been my mother's. She kept it on her car keys my whole childhood, and after she died, it disappeared. I thought it had been lost forever. He dangled it in front of me, the plastic wings catching the light. She told me to give this back to you. I swear my blood turned to ice. That's not possible, I whispered. She's gone? Yes. I know. His voice was calm, almost sympathetic, but there was something underneath. Something darker. But gone doesn't mean silent. The smell of gasoline was thick in the air, sharp and dizzying. I realized I was still holding the nozzle, knuckles white. My hand was shaking. Who are you? I asked. He smiled again, wider this time, though it didn't reach his eyes. Let's just say I knew her. Better than you think. I took a step back. My chest was tight, breath shallow. This didn't make sense. My mother had been a quiet woman, private. She barely let neighbors into our lives, let alone strangers. Yet here he was, standing in front of me, holding something only she should have had, saying a name only she used. I couldn't stop staring at the keychain. It swung gently between his fingers, catching the harsh fluorescent light. I remembered the feel of it when I was a kid, smooth plastic, slightly sticky from years of handling. My throat burned. I don't believe you, I said, but the words came out weaker than I meant. He shrugged, slipping the angel back into his pocket. You don't have to. But she wanted me to tell you something. That's when the lights above us flickered. For a split second, the entire station plunged into darkness. The pumps, the sign, even the glow from inside the store, all gone. Just black silence pressing in on every side. And in that brief moment, I heard it. A whisper. My mother's voice. Close. Right next to my ear. Linny, run. The lights snapped back on. The man hadn't moved, but now his smile was gone. His expression was flat, unreadable. I stumbled back toward my car, heart pounding, every nerve screaming at me to leave. But something inside me hesitated, because as much as I wanted to drive away, a part of me needed to know. Needed to understand how this man knew her, how he had that keychain, how he had her voice. And against every shred of common sense, I asked, "What did she want you to tell me?" His answer would change everything. The man's eyes locked on mine. For the first time since he spoke, I noticed something unsettling. His gaze didn't waver. Not even to blink. Just unbroken, heavy eye contact, like he was daring me to look away. "You're not ready to hear it," he finally said, his voice low. "But she wanted me to warn you. The past isn't buried. And soon, it'll find you." My stomach dropped. What does that mean? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked over my shoulder, toward the dark road stretching behind me. His jaw tightened, and I saw a flicker of something in his expression, fear. That made my skin crawl. Because if a man this strange, this unnervingly calm, could look scared, then whatever he was thinking about had to be worse. I gripped the car door handle, ready to bolt. "I don't know who you are," I said, trying to sound stronger than I felt, "but you stay the hell away from me." He tilted his head again, like I'd just said something amusing. "You sound just like her." I froze. Before I could respond, the lights above us flickered again. The hum of electricity stuttered, and for a second, everything felt like it was holding its breath. The man straightened, shoulders rigid, as if he sensed something I couldn't. Then, without warning, he stepped back into the shadows, retreating toward the side of the store. His coat swayed around him, and in the harsh light, it looked almost like wings folding. I blinked, and he was gone. Not walking away. Not turning a corner. Just gone. The lot was empty. My pulse hammered in my ears. I scrambled into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and locked it. My hands were shaking so badly I fumbled with the keys twice before the engine roared to life. The sound was too loud in the silence, but I didn't care. I had to leave. The tires screeched as I pulled out of the station, headlights cutting through the endless stretch of trees. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see him standing in the middle of the road, that broken keychain dangling from his fingers. But there was nothing. Just the emptiness of the highway. For the next 30 minutes, I drove faster than I should have, white-knuckling the wheel, trying to breathe normally. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe the man had guessed the name. Maybe the keychain was a coincidence. But deep down, I knew better. Because I couldn't shake the sound of that whisper. My mother's voice, warning me, telling me to run. And here's the thing, my mother never raised her voice at me. Never spoke sharp or urgent. She was soft, patient, calm. Even when she was sick, even near the end. That whisper, it wasn't her. Not exactly. It was her voice, yes. But twisted. Warped, like it was being dragged through something else before it reached me. By the time I pulled into the next town, my chest felt tight, and I was running on pure nerves. The glowing sign of a 24-hour diner felt like salvation. I pulled into the lot and parked under a light, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me anchored. I sat there for a minute, headlights reflecting off the glass windows. The diner looked normal. Safe. A couple truckers inside, a waitress refilling coffee. Warm light, laughter, the clink of dishes. Normal. But I couldn't make myself move. My hands refused to let go of the wheel. And then I saw it. On the passenger seat. The angel keychain. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't brought it with me. He'd had it in his pocket. I saw him put it there. But now it was lying next to me, wings chipped, plastic scuffed just like I remembered. For a long moment, all I could do was stare. The diner's neon lights reflected off its surface, and I thought about all the times I'd played with it as a kid, spinning it on my mother's keyring while she drove. My breath came shallow. I reached out slowly and picked it up. It was warm. Too warm, like it had been sitting in someone's hand only moments ago. And then I noticed something else. There was writing scratched into the back. Jagged, uneven letters carved into the plastic. I don't know how I missed it before, but now it felt like it was glowing in my palm. 3 words. Don't trust him. My skin went cold. Who wrote it? My mother? The man? Someone else? And who the hell was him? I shoved the keychain into the glove box, slammed it shut, and forced myself to get out of the car. The night air hit me like a slap, and I walked quickly into the diner, trying to ground myself in the normalcy of clinking dishes and the smell of frying bacon. But even surrounded by people, I couldn't shake the feeling. That man wasn't done with me. And worse, whatever he'd warned me about, whatever my mother's twisted voice had whispered, wasn't done either. The bell over the diner door jingled as I stepped inside, the wave of warmth and greasy comfort food hitting me like a blanket. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd finally shaken the chill from that gas station. A waitress in her late 40s gave me a tired but friendly smile. "Seat yourself, Han." I slid into a booth near the back, facing the door. My nerves still buzzed, and I wanted to see anyone who came in. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the menu, though I didn't care about food. I just wanted a place to think, somewhere that felt real. The diner wasn't crowded, 2 truckers at the counter, a couple in the corner booth, and a lone man in a baseball cap nursing a coffee near the window. The clink of silverware and low hum of a jukebox gave the place a kind of safety I hadn't felt in hours. The waitress came over with a pot of coffee. "Late night, huh?" I nodded. "Something like that." "You look like you've seen a ghost." She chuckled softly, pouring the steaming liquid into my mug. The smell should have been comforting, but instead it churned my stomach. If only she knew. I wrapped my hands around the cup, just trying to stop the shaking. I kept replaying everything in my mind, the stranger's stare, his voice saying that name, the keychain that shouldn't be in my car. And worst of all, my mother's voice whispering run. When the waitress walked away, I pulled out my phone. No signal. I wasn't surprised half these small towns were dead zones, but the timing made my chest tighten. I tried to distract myself by sipping the coffee. It was bitter, scorching, but at least it grounded me. I focused on the heat in my hands, the chatter of the truckers, the hiss of the grill. And then the bell above the door jingled again. I froze. It wasn't him. Not the man from the station. Just another customer, tall, heavy-set, beard flecked with gray. He nodded at the waitress, slid onto a stool at the counter. Normal. Ordinary. I let out a shaky breath, telling myself I was being paranoid. But then I saw it. On the counter, dangling from his car keys as he set them down, was an identical angel keychain. Chipped wing. Scuffed plastic. My stomach turned to stone. I blinked hard, convinced my mind was playing tricks on me. But no, the same little trinket swung gently from his keys, just like the one sitting in my glove box outside. I stared so long I didn't realize the man had noticed. He turned slightly, meeting my eyes across the diner. And he smiled. Not wide. Not friendly. Just a faint, knowing curve of his lips, the exact same expression the stranger at the gas station had worn. The air felt too thin. I dropped my gaze immediately, staring at the steaming surface of my coffee. My pulse pounded in my ears. When I glanced back up, the keychain was gone. His keys still sat on the counter, but no angel. My hands shook so badly I nearly spilled my drink. I needed to get out. But moving felt impossible, like my legs were rooted to the booth. The waitress appeared again, snapping me back. "You okay, Han? You're white as a sheet." I need some air," I muttered, sliding out of the booth before she could respond. The bell jingled again as I stepped outside, the night air biting into my skin. My car sat under the glow of a street lamp, the glove box closed tight. For a second, I thought about grabbing the keychain, just to prove to myself it was real. But then something caught my eye. Across the street, by the darkened hardware store, a figure stood in the shadows. The coat. The stillness. It was him. The man from the gas station. My chest tightened. He wasn't moving, just watching me again, as if the distance between us meant nothing. The streetlight flickered above him, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw someone else standing beside him. A woman. Her outline was faint, blurred like smoke. But I knew that shape. My mother. I blinked and she was gone. Just him, watching. I couldn't breathe. I turned back toward the diner, desperate to get inside, but the windows had gone dark. The laughter, the clinking dishes, gone. The diner looked abandoned. I spun in a panic, looking back to the street. Empty. The man was gone. The shadows were just shadows again. And then my phone buzzed in my pocket. My heart leapt. I hadn't had service before. I yanked it out, screen glowing. One new voicemail. Unknown number. Hands trembling, I pressed play and lifted it to my ear. Static hissed for a few seconds. Then a voice. Soft. Familiar. My mother. Linny, don't let him in. The message cut off. And I realized, with a jolt of horror, that I hadn't locked my car. My stomach dropped. The words from the voicemail echoed in my head, don't let him in. I spun toward my car. The driver's side door was still shut, but the handle glinted in the streetlight. A thin sheen of condensation covered the windows, fogging them over from the inside, like someone had been sitting there, breathing. But I hadn't left anyone in my car. My legs felt like lead as I approached. Each step echoed too loudly on the cracked pavement, the silence swallowing the sound almost immediately. The closer I got, the more wrong everything felt. I peered through the fogged window, wiping at it with my sleeve. At first, I saw only my reflection, pale, wide-eyed, trembling. But then, behind my reflection, something shifted. A face. Not the stranger's. Not my own. A woman. Her features were blurred, smeared like wet paint on glass, but the shape of her hair, the tilt of her head, I knew them instantly. My mother. Her mouth moved slowly, forming words I couldn't hear. I pressed my ear to the glass, desperate. And then the lock clicked. The sound was so sharp in the silence it made me stumble back. The driver's side door creaked open an inch, then stopped, hanging there like an invitation. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. Another voicemail. Same unknown number. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone trying to play it. More static. Then the voice, whispering like it was coming from inside the phone and behind me at the same time. He's already inside. The line cut. My heart slammed against my ribs. I snapped my gaze back to the car. The door was shut again. Locked. I reached for the handle anyway, fingers trembling. The metal was ice cold, colder than the night air, burning against my skin. I yanked it open and slid inside, slamming the lock down. The interior smelled faintly of gasoline. I fumbled the keys into the ignition, hands slick with sweat, and the engine roared to life. But then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. Slow, deliberate, from the back seat. Every nerve in my body screamed not to look. My mother's warning repeated in my head, don't let him in. But the sound was too close, too heavy. I turned, just enough to glance over my shoulder. The back seat was empty. But the middle seat belt was pulled taut, stretched across the seat like someone invisible was buckled in. I stared, frozen, throat tight, as the belt slowly retracted, clicking back into place on its own. And then, faintly, a whisper brushed the back of my neck. Drive. I lurched forward, slamming the car into gear. Tires screeched as I tore out of the lot, headlights slicing into the empty road. My breath came in ragged gasps, eyes darting to the rearview mirror again and again. For the first 10 miles, there was nothing. Just the dark highway, trees crowding close, the hum of the engine. I started to convince myself it was over. That maybe stress, exhaustion, and grief were twisting my senses. But then the radio crackled to life. I hadn't touched it. The dial had been dead static since before the gas station. Now a voice slipped through the static. Not a station. Not a song. A man's voice. You can't run from blood, Linny. The sound was so sharp I swerved, tires screeching as I nearly veered off the road. I fumbled for the knob, twisting it wildly, but the voice stayed, clear and calm, threaded through the static. She hid things from you. But I can show you. I can tell you the truth. My throat was dry. Who are you? I shouted into the empty car. No answer at first, just the static. Then, softly. Your father knew me. The words hit like a punch to the gut. My father? Before I could process, the radio snapped off. Dead silence filled the car again, leaving only the pounding of my heart. I drove until I saw another sign of life, a faded motel glowing weakly at the edge of the highway. Vacancy light buzzing, one car in the lot. I pulled in hard, cutting the engine. My hands clutched the wheel long after the car was off, knuckles aching from the grip. Finally, I forced myself to look in the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just the empty back seat. But when I climbed out, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. On the passenger seat, lying neatly on top of the upholstery, was the Angel keychain. Again. This time, new words had been carved into the plastic. 4 of them. Room 6. Midnight. The neon vacancy sign buzzed faintly overhead, painting the lot in a dull red glow. Room 6. Midnight. The words carved into that plastic angel spun in my mind like a wheel I couldn't stop. I stood outside the car, staring at the glowing numbers stenciled onto the motel doors. My gut told me to leave, to burn rubber down the highway and never look back. But another part of me, the same part that hadn't run from the gas station, the same part that hadn't thrown the keychain into the woods, needed to know. The night air was still heavy. Every sound was magnified, the hum of the sign, the buzzing of a lone streetlight, the slow creak of the motel office door as the wind nudged it. Room 6 was halfway down, curtains drawn tight. A faint yellow light glowed under the door, like someone was waiting inside. I checked my phone. 11:57 p.m. My palms were damp, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. With each step toward the room, the world seemed to narrow. The other rooms faded. The parking lot faded. Even the sound of my own footsteps dulled until all I could hear was my breathing. I stopped outside the door. The keychain was in my pocket, edges biting into my skin. My mother's whisper echoed again in my head, "Don't let him in." But what if he was already inside? I raised my hand to knock, but before my knuckles touched the wood, a voice from within said, "Come in, Linny." The sound made my blood run cold. It wasn't muffled through the door. It was clear. Too clear, like the voice was right behind my ear. I froze. Slowly, the knob turned on its own. The door creaked open an inch, spilling out a sliver of warm yellow light. I should have run. Every instinct told me to. But something stronger pulled me forward. Answers. The truth. I pushed the door open. The room was small, stale. One bed, sheets rumpled. A dresser with a crooked mirror. A single lamp on the nightstand buzzing faintly. And in the corner, sitting in a chair like he'd been waiting all night, was the man from the gas station. The coat hung heavy around him, his hands folded neatly in his lap. His eyes locked on mine the moment I entered. "Close the door," he said. I did, though I don't know why. The air in the room felt thick, pressing against my chest. I could smell something faint, something familiar. A mix of perfume and cigarette smoke. My mother's scent. He leaned forward slightly. "You came. Good." My voice cracked when I finally managed to speak. "What do you want from me?" His smile was faint, but his eyes never softened. "Not from you. For you." I shook my head. "You knew her. You had her keychain." "How? Who the hell are you?" He let the silence stretch until it felt unbearable. Then he said, "Your father and I had an agreement. Long before you were born." I felt the floor tilt under me. "My father." He nodded once. "He asked for something. And in return, I asked for something too. Promises were made." I swallowed hard. My father had died when I was a teenager, a sudden heart attack. My mother never talked much about him afterward. "What kind of promises?" The man's smile widened. "Blood. Legacy. He thought he could cheat me. That I wouldn't collect. But your mother, she understood. She tried to protect you. Tried to hide you from me." My skin went cold. "Protect me from what?" His eyes gleamed, and for the first time, he leaned back, his face slipping into shadow. "From belonging to me." The words hit like ice water. My knees felt weak. "You're lying." "Am I?" His tone sharpened. "Why do you think she whispered that name? Why do you think she clung to that keychain, prayed over it, scratched warnings into it? She knew this day would come." I shook my head violently. No. She wouldn't. She did. The lamp flickered. The air grew heavier, pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. And then, from the mirror on the dresser, I saw movement. A woman's reflection. I spun, but no one was there. The chair, the bed, the man, nothing else. But in the mirror, clear as day, stood my mother. Her eyes were wide, her mouth moving silently, desperately. I couldn't hear her, but I could read the words on her lips. Don't listen. I staggered back, heart slamming. The man didn't turn. He didn't even glance at the mirror. He just watched me, smiling faintly. She's trying to confuse you, he said softly. She doesn't want you to know the truth. But I can give it to you. All of it. Just let me in. The lamp flickered again, casting shadows across his face. For a moment, his features seemed to shift, jaw sharper, eyes darker, mouth stretched wider. And in the mirror, my mother shook her head furiously, slamming her hand against the glass, mouthing the same words over and over. Don't let him in. My phone buzzed in my pocket again, startling me. I yanked it out. Another voicemail. Same number. With trembling hands, I pressed play. This time, it wasn't static. It was clear. My mother's voice, raw and desperate. Linny, please don't believe him. He isn't what he looks like. If you let him in, you'll never leave. I looked up. The man was still staring, still smiling faintly. Well, he asked softly. Who do you trust? The room seemed to shrink around me. The buzzing lamp, the crooked mirror, the man in the chair, they all pressed closer, suffocating. My mother's reflection in the mirror was frantic, hands flat against the glass, as if she could break through. Her lips moved faster now, her eyes wide with panic. Don't let him in. But the man, so calm, so steady, just sat there, watching me. His voice was smooth, almost soothing. She's lying to you, Linny. She always has. You deserve the truth. My throat was dry. The truth about what? His smile deepened, though his eyes remained sharp, predatory. About what you are. The words hit me like a blow. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped my phone. What I am. He leaned forward. For the briefest moment, the shadows warped his face. His eyes gleamed too bright, his smile too wide, stretching past human. You're not hers. Not entirely. Part of you belongs to me. No. I shook my head, backing away. That's not possible. The mirror rattled violently against the wall, though no one touched it. My mother's reflection slammed her fists against the glass, her mouth shaping a single word now over and over. Run. 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 The man's voice cut through it, sharp and commanding. Stay. The air thickened instantly, like invisible hands were pressing me down into the floor. My chest heaved as I struggled to breathe. My skin prickled, hot and cold all at once. He stood slowly, his coat dragging against the floor. You've already let me in more than you realize. Every time you listened. Every time you doubted her. You've opened the door. The room tilted, shadows stretching unnaturally across the walls. The buzzing lamp flared, then exploded, plunging us into darkness. In that instant, I felt something behind me. Not breath this time, hands. Cold, claw-like fingers brushing the back of my neck. I spun, but there was nothing. The man's voice came from everywhere at once, filling the room, seeping into my skull. She can't save you, Linny. She never could. You're mine. The mirror shattered. Glass rained down across the carpet, glittering in the dim glow of the streetlight outside. My mother's reflection was gone. But the sound of her voice, raw, desperate, echoed one last time, as if pulled from the shards themselves. Don't let him. Cut off. Silence. I stumbled back against the door, heart hammering. My phone slipped from my hand, screen cracking as it hit the floor. The voicemail icon blinked again. New message. Same unknown number. The man was gone. The chair was empty. The room was still. I was alone. Or at least, it looked that way. Hands shaking, I bent down and picked up my phone. I pressed play. The voice that came through was my own. But it wasn't me speaking. Linny, you let me in. The line went dead. And in the silence that followed, I realized something horrifying. I could still feel the keychain in my pocket. Warm. Pulsing. Almost like it had a heartbeat of its own. The next morning, the motel clerk swore room 6 had been empty all night. No guests by my name. No one had checked in. But when I got back in my car, the angel keychain was hanging from the rearview mirror, swaying gently as though someone had just placed it there. And this time, carved deep into the plastic, were 5 new words. See you at home, Linny.